Trouble in the shed. The fat controller sat in his office and listened. The fat controller frowned and said, "Oh, what a nuisance passengers are! How can I possibly work with all this noise? Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear!" "Yes, what is it?" It was the station master, looking very worried. "There's trouble in the shed, sir. Henry is sulking. There is no train, and the passengers are saying that this is a bad railway." "Indeed? Really? We cannot allow that. Now, will you quieten the passengers, please, and I will go and speak to Henry." The fat controller found Henry, Gordon, and James looking sulky. "Now come along, Henry. It's time your train was ready." But Henry wouldn't answer. It was Gordon who said, "Henry's not going, so there, and neither are James or I. We won't shunt like common tank engines. We are important tender engines, if you don't mind. You fetch our coaches for us, and we'll pull them. But we won't shunt. Tender engines don't shunt. So there." And all three engines let off steam in a cheeky way. And the fat controller said, "Oh, indeed. Engines on my railway do as they're told. I'll go and find Edward." Edward was shunting. "I say, Edward, leave those tracks, will you please? I want you to push coaches for me in the yard." "Oh, thank you, sir. That will be a nice change." "That's a good engine. Off you go then." So Edward found coaches for the three engines, and that day the trains ran as usual. But when the fat controller came next morning, Edward looked unhappy. Gordon came past, clanking and hissing very rudely. "Why, bless me, what a noise!" "I know. They all hiss at me, sir. They say tender engines don't shunt. And last night they said I had black wheels. I haven't. Have I, sir?" "No, Edward, of course you haven't. You've got nice blue ones, and I'm proud of you. Tender engines do shunt, but all the same, you'd be happier in your own yard. We need a tank engine here." And the fat controller went to an engine workshop and saw all sorts of tank engines. At last, he saw a smart little green engine. Yes, I think so. That's the one. I say there, if I choose you, will you work hard?" Oh, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir." "That's a good engine. I'll call you, Percy. Yes, Percy. Do you like that, Percy?" "Oh, yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir." So the fat controller drove Percy back to the yard and introduced him to Edward. Percy soon learned what he had to do, and they had a happy afternoon. And then Henry came by, hissing as usual. But Percy just went, That really frightened Henry. He jumped and ran away. Edward laughed and said, how beautifully you washed him, Percy. I can't make a noise like that." "Oh, that's nothing. You should hear them in the workshops. You have to make a noise like that to be heard." Next morning, Thomas arrived. "Hello, Edward." "Oh, hello, Thomas. The fat controller sent for me. I expect he wants help." Oh, he does indeed, Thomas. Here he comes now. Well done, Thomas. You have been quick. Now listen, Henry, Gordon and James are sulking. They say they won't shunt like common tank engines, so I have shut them up. And I want you both to run the line. Common tank engines, indeed. We'll show them. Well done, Thomas. And Percy here will help too. Won't you, Percy? Oh, sir. Yes, sir, please, sir. Edward and Thomas pulled the trains. They started at opposite ends and whistled to each other as they passed. There were fewer trains, but the passengers didn't mind. They knew the three other engines were having a lesson. Henry, Gordon and James stayed shut in the shed and were cold, lonely and miserable. They wished now they hadn't been so silly. Percy runs away. Henry, Gordon and James were shut up for several days. At last, the Fat Controller opened the shed. Ah, now then, I hope you're sorry and understand you're not so important after all. Thomas, Edward and Percy have worked the line very nicely. Now they need a change, and I will let you out if you promise to be good. Now, will you? Yes, sir, we will. Yes, sir, we will. Yes, sir, we will. That's right. But please remember, this no shunting nonsense must stop. And the Fat Controller told Edward, Thomas and Percy that they could go and play on the branch line for a few days. They ran off happily and found Annie and Clarabel at the junction. The two coaches were so pleased to see Thomas again, and he took them out for a run at once. Edward and Percy played with the trucks and pushed them into their proper sidings. The trucks made a terrible fuss. They went, oh, 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 stop, 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 stop. But the two engines laughed. And went on shunting till the trucks were tidily arranged. Next, Edward took some empty trucks to the quarry, and Percy was left alone. Percy didn't mind that a bit. He liked watching trains and being cheeky to the engines. He would make noises at them as they went by. Gordon, Henry and James got very cross. After a while, he took some trucks over the main line to another siding. When they were tidy, he ran onto the main line again and waited for the signalman to set the points so that he could cross back to the yard. Edward had warned Percy, "Look, be careful, Percy, on the main line. Whistle to tell the signalman that you're there." But Percy didn't remember to whistle, and the signalman was so busy he forgot Percy. Bells rang in the signal box. The man answered, saying the line was clear, and set the signals for the next train. Percy waited and waited. The points were still against him. He looked along the main line and saw something that made him go, for rushing straight towards him was Gordon with the express. Gordon went, his driver shut off steam and applied the brakes. Percy's driver turned on full steam. "Back, Percy, back!" But Percy's wheels wouldn't turn quickly. Gordon was coming so fast that it seemed he couldn't stop. Percy just shut his eyes and waited for the crash. His driver and fireman jumped out. Gordon yelled, "Oh, get out of my way! Get out of my way! Oh!" Percy opened his eyes. Gordon had stopped, with Percy's buffers a few inches from his own. Percy was very, very frightened. He began to move backwards. "I won't stay here, I'll run away. Shh, 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 shh. I won't stay here, I'll run away. Shh, 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 shh. I won't stay here, I'll run away." He was soon clear of the station and running as fast as he could. He whistled through Edward's station, and he ran right up Gordon's Hill without stopping. He was getting tired and wanted to stop, but he couldn't. He had no driver to shut off steam and to apply the brakes. Oh dear, I shall have to run till my wheels wear out. Shh, 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 shh. I want to stop. Shh, shh, shh. I want to stop. Shh, shh, shh. I want to stop. Just then he passed another signal box, and the signalman called out, "I know just what you want, little Percy." He set the points, and Percy puffed wearily onto a nice empty siding, and at the end of the siding was a big bank of earth. Percy was too tired now to care where he went. "I want to stop. Shh, 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 shh. I want to stop. Shh, 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 shh. Oh, I have stopped." Yes, the big bank of earth had stopped Percy. His bunker was buried in it. The workmen came to dig him out. "Never mind, Percy, you'll feel better after a drink." Presently, Gordon arrived.
"Oh, well done, Percy. You know, you started so quickly that you stopped a nasty accident."
"Oh, I'm sorry I was cheeky, Gordon. You were clever to stop."
Percy now works in the yard and finds coaches for the trains. He's still cheeky, he's that sort of engine, but he's always most careful when he goes on the main line.